He smiled as he handed my car keys to a stranger. But the look on his face 5 days later is something I'll never forget. My name is Michael Carter. I'm 64 years old, and until recently, I believed I knew my son better than anyone else. I spent 38 years working as a mechanic in Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't glamorous work. I came home every evening with grease under my fingernails and an aching back, but I was proud of what I had built. Every dollar I earned went toward my family. My wife, Linda, passed away 6 years ago after a long battle with cancer. Losing her changed everything. The house suddenly felt too quiet. Every room reminded me of her. I could have sold it and moved somewhere smaller, but I couldn't let go. Too many memories lived inside those walls. Our only son, Ryan, was 34. People always said he looked just like me. I used to smile when they said that. Now I wasn't so sure. Ryan had always been charming. The kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone laugh. Friends loved him. Co-workers trusted him. Even strangers seemed drawn to him. But charm can hide things I didn't want to see. After Linda died, Ryan started visiting more often. At first, I appreciated it. He'd mow the lawn, fix a loose cabinet, or bring dinner on Friday nights. "You shouldn't be alone so much, Dad," he'd say. I believed him. Maybe I wanted to believe him. Then the requests started. It was always something small. "Dad, can you loan me $500? I'll pay you back next month." "Dad, my credit card is maxed out." "Dad, business is slow." Every time he promised it was temporary. Every time I helped. Months passed. The money never came back. I told myself that's what parents do. They help. They forgive. They hope. Looking back, hope can be expensive. The one thing I never regretted buying was my old 1969 Chevrolet Chevelle. It wasn't just a classic car. It was my dream. Linda and I bought it 25 years earlier after saving for nearly a decade. Every summer we'd drive along quiet country roads with the windows down and old rock songs playing through the speakers. After she died, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. It wasn't transportation. It was the last place where I still felt close to her. Ryan knew that. He knew every story behind that car. He knew how carefully I polished it every Saturday morning. He even joked once, "Dad, you treat that Chevelle better than most people treat their kids." I laughed. Now I realize he wasn't really joking. One Thursday morning, my neighbor Frank stopped while I was washing the driveway. "So," he said carefully. "Congratulations." I frowned. "For what?" He looked confused. "The sale." "What sale?" "Your Chevelle." For a second, I honestly thought he had the wrong house. "My Chevelle isn't for sale." Frank scratched his head. "I saw a young guy loading it onto a trailer yesterday." My stomach tightened. "What young guy?" "I assumed it was your son." I didn't answer. I simply walked into the garage. The space was empty, completely empty. The air suddenly felt heavy. I stood there staring at the concrete floor where the Chevelle had sat for decades. I kept waiting for my eyes to tell me I was mistaken, but they didn't. I called Ryan immediately. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Dad, where's my car?" Silence. Just for a second. Then he laughed. "Oh, that. He called my dream car. That." "What did you do?" "I sold it." I couldn't even speak. "You what?" "Dad, relax." "Relax. I got a great price." "You had no right." "I was helping you." "Helping me?" "You barely drive it anymore." "It just sat there." I needed money. Those 4 words echoed in my ears. I needed money. Not. We needed money. Not. I made a mistake. I needed money. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. "You stole my car." "No, Dad. I had a key. You gave me one years ago." "I didn't steal it." I closed my eyes. "I gave you a key to help in emergencies. I didn't give you permission to sell my property." He sighed like I was the difficult one. "You always overreact." The call ended seconds later. Not because we solved anything. Because I hung up before I said something I'd regret. That night I barely slept. I kept seeing Linda sitting in the passenger seat, laughing, holding the map upside down, teasing me because I always missed the same exit every summer. By morning, I wasn't just angry. I was heartbroken. The next day, Ryan came over. He walked inside carrying coffee like nothing had happened. Dad, I know you're upset. I looked at him across the kitchen. When were you planning to tell me? He shrugged. I figured you'd notice eventually. Notice eventually. Those words hurt more than I expected. He actually believed this wasn't a big deal. I already spent most of the money, he admitted. So there's no point making this worse. I stared at him. How much did you sell it for? He hesitated. 30,000. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I knew exactly what that car was worth. At least twice that amount. Maybe more. You sold it for half its value? I needed cash fast. So you robbed me quickly instead? His face hardened. I thought you'd understand. No, I don't. For the first time in his life. Ryan looked uncomfortable, but it lasted only a second. Then he reached for his coffee. I've got to get to work. Work, as if nothing had happened. As he reached the front door, he turned back. Oh, the buyer already transferred the title. So it's done. Then he smiled. A small smile. The kind that says, you can't do anything about it. He walked away believing he had won. He believed an old man would cry, forgive him, and move on. He had no idea I had already noticed something he completely overlooked. Something hidden in plain sight. And once I confirmed what I suspected, everything in Ryan's perfect little plan was about to fall apart. The moment Ryan drove away, I didn't chase him. I didn't yell. I didn't call him back. Instead, I poured myself another cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the empty spot where Linda's favorite chair used to be. Then I remembered something. Years earlier, when I renewed the insurance on the Chevelle, the agent had suggested creating a special ownership file because the car had become a valuable classic. At the time, I almost said no. It sounded like unnecessary paperwork. Linda had smiled and nudged my arm. Humor him, Michael, she said. One day you'll be glad you did. Maybe she was right. I walked into my home office and unlocked the old filing cabinet. Inside was a thick folder labeled 1969 Chevelle, insurance records, maintenance history, professional appraisals, photos from every restoration, receipts dating back more than 20 years. And then, exactly what I hoped to find, the original purchase agreement, along with another document Ryan had obviously never seen. I smiled for the first time since the nightmare began. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a loophole. It was simply the truth. I picked up my phone and called the attorney who had handled Linda's estate. His name was David Reynolds. After listening quietly, he asked only one question. Michael, did you ever sign a power of attorney giving Ryan permission to sell your property? No. Did you sign the title yourself? Absolutely not. He paused. Then your son had no legal authority to sell that vehicle. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in 2 days. So the sale isn't as final as he thinks? David chuckled. Not even close. An hour later, I was sitting in his office. He spread every document across the conference table. The buyer may have acted in good faith, he explained. But if the title transfer involved forged signatures or false statements, this becomes a legal matter. I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of revenge. I wasn't trying to ruin someone's life. I just wanted what belonged to me. David leaned back. Before we contact anyone, there's something else we should do. What? Find the buyer. That afternoon, we tracked him down. His name was Ethan Brooks. He owned a small construction company outside Cincinnati. When David explained why we wanted to meet, Ethan sounded genuinely confused. I bought it from the owner's son, he said. He told me his father was moving into assisted living. I closed my eyes. Another lie. Ryan hadn't just stolen my car. He had invented a story about me. The next morning, Ethan agreed to meet us. I expected an argument. Instead, he looked nervous before we even shook hands. I had no idea, he said immediately. If I'd known, I would have walked away. He showed us every text message Ryan had sent, every email, every photo, every promise. Ryan had even written, Dad already approved everything. He just hates paperwork. That sentence changed everything. David quietly looked at me. This helps. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I still have the car. You do? I haven't registered it yet. I've been waiting on a specialty insurance policy. I couldn't believe my luck. For the first time since all this started, I saw my Chevelle again. It sat inside Ethan's garage under a clean cover. When he pulled it back, I couldn't speak. The sunlight reflected off the blue paint exactly the way it always had. I rested my hand on the hood. "I'm sorry," Ethan said softly. "I honestly thought I was buying it from someone who had every right to sell it." I believed him. None of this was his fault. David handled everything professionally. Within days, Ethan agreed to cooperate fully. He wanted his money back. I wanted my car. The real problem was Ryan. When Ryan received the attorney's letter, he called me within minutes. "You hired a lawyer?" "Yes." "You actually did this?" "You sold my property." "It was just a car." "No, it was your mother's memory." Silence. Then he snapped. "You always cared more about that stupid car than me." The words hit hard, because they weren't true. I spent decades putting him first. College tuition, medical bills, rent, loan after loan. Every sacrifice a parent could make. And somehow, I had become the villain. "I loved you enough to trust you," I said quietly. "You turned that trust into cash." He hung up. A week later, mediation was scheduled. Ryan arrived wearing an expensive suit. He still acted confident. He assumed I'd eventually forgive him. He always had. But this time was different. David calmly placed every document on the table. The forged signature, the messages to Ethan, the appraisal proving the car had been sold far below market value, the payment records showing where the money went. Most of it had disappeared into gambling apps, luxury purchases, and overdue personal debts. Ryan's confidence slowly faded. His attorney whispered something in his ear. For the first time, Ryan looked scared. The meeting lasted nearly 4 hours. By the end, the agreement was simple. Ryan would repay every dollar Ethan had lost. He would cover all legal expenses. He would return every spare key he still possessed. And he would have no further claim to any of my property. If he refused, the case would move forward in court. He signed. Not because he wanted to. Because he finally understood he had no other choice. As we walked out, Ryan stopped me in the hallway. "You really chose a car over your own son." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I answered, "No, you chose money over your father." Those were the last words I said to him that day. Months passed. Life became quiet again. I drove the Chevelle on Sunday mornings, just like Linda and I used to. Sometimes I talked to her out loud. It probably looked silly to anyone watching. I didn't care. One afternoon, I received a handwritten letter. It was from Ryan. Not a text, not an email, a real letter. He admitted he'd been drowning in debt for years. He had hidden gambling losses from everyone. Selling my car wasn't a desperate decision. It was simply the easiest one. He apologized. Not with excuses, with honesty. For the first time in years, I didn't forgive him immediately. Some wounds need time. Trust isn't rebuilt because someone says I'm sorry. It's rebuilt through choices. Months later, we met for coffee. The conversation was awkward, quiet. Neither of us knew where to begin. Then Ryan looked at me and said something I never expected. "I've been going to counseling. I finally understand what I destroyed." I nodded. "I'm glad." That didn't erase what happened, but it was a start. Today, we still aren't as close as we once were. Maybe we never will be, but he pays back every dollar he owes. He asks before borrowing anything. And every Saturday morning, he joins me in the garage, not to take the Chevelle, to help polish it. Sometimes we don't speak at all. Sometimes silence says enough. Linda used to tell us that trust was like glass. Once shattered, you can glue the pieces together, but you'll always see the cracks. She was right. And every time I slide behind the wheel of that old Chevelle, I'm reminded of something far more valuable than a classic car. Respect. Because when someone betrays your trust, the smartest revenge isn't anger. It's standing up for yourself, legally, calmly, and without becoming the person who hurt you. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. What would you have done if your own child sold something that meant the world to you?